In the quiet suburbs outside Portland, Oregon, billionaire Ethan Ward's newborn son is diagnosed with profound deafness, shattering the illusion of his perfect life and leaving him gasping for answers money cannot buy. Across the city, struggling mechanic and single father Lucas Hale clings to the last secret his wife left behind, a wooden box he's feared opening for years. Fate forces their worlds together through a broken-down car, an inexplicable reaction from a silent child, and an unease neither man fully understands. By nightfall, the box calls to Lucas with a force he can no longer ignore, and what he finds inside shakes him to the core. Morning sunlight spilled across the quiet suburbs of Portland, stretching long pale beams across the Ward estate's immaculate driveway. Inside, Ethan Ward stood still, frozen by the doctor's words that echoed like a verdict. His newborn son would never hear a single sound. The hospital room, filled with soft beeping monitors and sterile light, felt unbearably loud to Ethan, even as his infant lay wrapped in a silence deeper than anything he had ever imagined. He tried to hold the edges of his composure together, but they slipped like water through clenched fingers. Wealth meant influence, access, solutions, but no amount of money could buy what his son had been born without. The weight of helplessness pressed down on him, heavier than any corporate burden he'd ever carried. For the first time in years, Ethan felt small, powerless, a father terrified of a future he could not control or predict. Across the river, in an auto shop that smelled of oil, metal shavings, and coffee, Lucas Hale worked with the quiet precision of a man who had nothing left to lose. His hands were scarred, his eyes hollowed from too little sleep and too many bills. But beneath all that exhaustion lived the stubborn resilience of a single father who had promised his late wife he'd give their daughter, Emily, a life worth fighting for. On the highest shelf of his bedroom closet sat the wooden box she left behind, carved with patterns Lucas never recognized. He had avoided opening it for years, afraid of what memories or truths it might contain. Tonight, though, something gnawed at him, a tension in the air he couldn't name. The box felt heavier in his thoughts, as if it waited, whispering for him to finally face whatever she had hidden inside. Fate tightened its threads the next afternoon, when Ethan's car sputtered to a stop on a narrow street near Lucas's shop. He had left the hospital desperate to breathe, to escape the crushing silence that followed him home. But the engine died without warning, hissing smoke and steam. Lucas jogged over, wiping his hands on a rag, unaware that this stranded stranger would change everything, not just for Ethan, but for his own fragile world too. Ethan lifted his infant carrier from the back seat, the baby nestled in quiet stillness. Lucas's gaze softened when he saw the child, a flicker of recognition crossing his face, though he didn't know why. Emily had been just that small when his wife died. Something about the boy's calm, his wide, unblinking eyes, stirred an ache Lucas kept buried. Ethan noticed the look, unsure whether to feel comforted or exposed. "Engine seized?" Lucas asked, leaning into the hood. Ethan nodded, still adjusting the blanket over his son. When Lucas reached in with a flashlight, the child's gaze followed the beam with uncanny focus. Ethan froze. The doctor had insisted his son's auditory nerves were unresponsive, his reflexes unaffected by sound or movement. Yet here he was, tracking the faint hum of Lucas's tools, not with hearing, but with something else, something Ethan could not explain. Lucas didn't notice at first. He was focused on the jammed belts, the scorched metal, the sabotage-like damage he found beneath the engine cover. "This didn't happen on its own," he muttered. Ethan felt a tremor crawl across his spine. Someone had tampered with his car. Someone who knew he'd be driving alone with his son. A thought surfaced, one he'd tried to dismiss for months, about a rival who wanted more than just his company. Lucas finally stepped back from the hood, wiping sweat from his brow. "I can fix it, but it won't be quick." Ethan nodded, exhausted. He shifted his son in his arms, and the baby reached toward Lucas. Slow, deliberate, almost compelled. Lucas paused, his chest tightening as memories of his wife's last breath flickered through him. Something about the child's presence felt familiar, unsettling, like a voice from the past, calling through silence. When Ethan returned to the shop, Lucas noticed the bruises under his eyes, the trembling in his shoulders, the way he clutched his son as if shielding him from an unseen threat. They spoke quietly between the clatter of tools. Ethan confessed the truth. The diagnosis, the fear, the silence that wrapped around his home like a burial cloth. Lucas listened, trying not to imagine himself in Ethan's place, knowing too well how loss could hollow a man. As Lucas tightened the final bolts, the baby stirred again, reaching toward the faint buzz of a tool before it even touched metal. Ethan stared, breath faltering. Lucas frowned, noticing the subtle reaction. "He can feel something," Lucas whispered. Ethan shook his head, torn between hope and fear. Whatever was happening defied every explanation. It felt like the opening of a door neither man knew existed. When Ethan finally left with his repaired car, Lucas stood alone in the shop's doorway, the last rays of daylight casting long shadows across the pavement. He felt unease tugging at him. An intuition he trusted more than logic. Something connected him to that child, a thread stretching backward into memories he'd never fully understood. The wooden box waited at home, its meaning now impossible to ignore. That night, after tucking Emily into bed, Lucas climbed the creaking stairs to his room. The house was quiet, but the quiet felt different now, charged, expectant, as if the air itself held its breath. He pulled the wooden box from the closet and set it on the bed. His hands trembled. For years he'd convinced himself he wasn't ready, but now he sensed the truth. Whatever lay inside connected not only to his wife's past, but to Ethan's silent son. Lucas sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at the carved patterns. Emily's soft breathing floated down the hall, grounding him. He pressed his thumb beneath the lid and lifted. The hinges groaned. Inside lay an object wrapped in his wife's handwriting. Schematics, symbols, fragments of an invention she never spoke of. Cold light glinted off smooth metal shaped in ways Lucas couldn't understand. A pulse of fear, wonder, and grief washed through him as he realized this device was never meant to stay hidden. It was meant to be found, meant to be used, and someone else already knew it existed. A sudden knock echoed through the darkness, stopping his breath before he could move at all. Lucas didn't move at first. The knock that thundered through the dark house felt too deliberate, too urgent, the kind that didn't belong to a friendly neighbor or a package delivery. He closed the wooden box, breath caught in his throat, and stepped silently into the hallway. Emily slept in the next room, her breathing soft and steady, unaware of the tension that coiled like a living thing in the house. Another knock, harder this time. Lucas's pulse hammered. No one visited him this late. No one even knew he lived here, except a few customers. And the landlord. Instinct whispered danger, that quiet voice he'd learned to trust during the most difficult moments of his life. When he cracked the front door, Ethan Ward stood on the porch, drenched from the thin Portland rain. His expression held exhaustion, desperation, and something close to fear. "I didn't set nowhere else to go," Ethan said. Lucas exhaled, relieved and worried all at once, then stepped aside to let him in. Ethan carried his son close to his chest, wrapped in a blanket, the infant's silent gaze drifting toward the dim hallway light. Lucas shut the door. "What's wrong?" Ethan hesitated, almost ashamed of what he was about to say. He reacted again. "Not to light, not to touch, to something near me, something I couldn't see." His voice trembled. "Lucas, I watched my son turn his head toward nothing, like he was listening to someone in another room." Lucas swallowed hard. He hadn't told Ethan about the device yet. He hadn't told anyone, but the timing felt cruelly aligned, too aligned to ignore. "What do you mean listening?" Lucas asked quietly. Ethan's such jaw tightened. "My son is deaf, Lucas." Profoundly. "They ran the test twice today, just to be sure. No nerve response. No auditory reactions. Nothing. And yet, every time I think about what happened with you, what he did in your shop, it feels like something is waking up in him." Lucas's eyes drifted toward the wooden box on the kitchen table. He could still feel the residual electric hum from the device inside, as if it were waiting for him to finish what his wife had started. "Sit down," Lucas said. Ethan placed the child gently on the couch and lowered himself beside him. Rain pattered softly against the windows, filling the silence between them. Lucas opened the wooden box again. Ethan leaned forward, eyes narrowing, a hint of disbelief flickering over his face. Inside lay the smooth metallic object, shaped almost like a crescent, engraved with intricate patterns. Lucas had never deciphered. Beside it were sketches, his wife's handwriting, formulas, diagrams of neural pathways, and a small journal stained from years of hiding. "What is that?" Ethan whispered. Lucas ran a trembling hand through his hair. "My wife was a biomedical engineer. Brilliant. Too brilliant. She worked on things the industry said were impossible. Things she never talked about at home. A year before she died, she locked this box away and told me not to open it unless I had no other choice." Ethan's gaze traveled between Lucas and the device. "And you think the choice is now?" Lucas nodded. "I don't know what this thing does. But look at her notes." He handed Ethan the journal. She wrote about interfacing with the nervous system using micro-resonance, light signals, wave frequencies, stuff that reads like science fiction. Ethan scanned the pages, his eyes widening. "This can set be real." "I thought so too," Lucas said. "Until your son reacted to me today. Until he followed sounds he shouldn't have been able to sense." Ethan looked down at his child, emotion twisting his face. "If there's sex even a chance, if there's sex anything here that could help him." "I don't want to hurt him," Lucas interrupted gently. "And I don't want to lose him." Ethan Sept's voice cracked. "You stir the only person my son responded to." "The only one." Lightning flashed outside. For a moment the room bathed in white light, illuminating the strange device in the box, making it appear almost alive. Lucas picked it up. It was lighter than he expected. Warm, as if it held memory or breath. His hands shook. "I'm Sep's smartest scientist. I don't know how it works." "Your wife did," Ethan said softly. "Maybe that's enough to start." Lucas hesitated. His wife's face flashed in his mind. The way she smiled when she solved something. The way she guarded her research with a fear she never explained. She died under circumstances the hospital never fully clarified, leaving Lucas with questions he'd buried beneath grief. He looked at Ethan. "She didn't trust the corporations she worked for. Said they were hiding things, using breakthroughs for profit. If this device is what I think it is, your enemies might know too." Ethan stiffened. "My company had internal leaks, executives with motives, people who wanted my seat for years." His voice darkened. "Are you suggesting my rival might be connected to her work?" "I'm suggesting their interests might intersect," Lucas replied. Ethan's seconds tightened. "Then we need to know what this thing does before they do." Lucas inhaled deeply. "Let's try it, but slowly." He activated the device. A soft vibration hummed through the room, almost imperceptible, like the air shifting around them. The baby blinked, eyes widening, fixed on the device with startling intensity. Lucas brought it closer, the vibration deepening, resonating in a way he felt more in his spine than his skin. Ethan held his breath. The child lifted his head, slowly, deliberately, toward a subtle tone no one else heard. His small fingers twitched, his lips parted, as if sensing something approaching from far away. Then, impossibly, He turned toward Lucas's voice when Lucas whispered his name. Ethan gasped. Lucas froze. The world held still for a heartbeat that stretched and stretched. Suddenly, alarms exploded from the baby monitor. Sharp and blaring, the device flashed. The child cried out, not in fear, but as if recognizing something only he could perceive. And then the pounding returned on Lucas's front door, louder, furious, shaking the frame, as a voice outside roared his name.